So, Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, what we got from him is things that we categorized. This is Sunnah. So the word Sunnah needs to be clarified what the word Sunnah is. If you are talking about the Sunnah in the practice sense, like Sunnah to the Prophet, it means what he actually taught us. The prayer is Sunnah, linguistically. The prayer is Sunnah, Hajj is Sunnah, the fasting is Sunnah, the zakat is Sunnah, how to deal with the people that are less fortunate, all of that is Sunnah, linguistically. If you mean the word Sunnah in an ideological sense, it actually, the opposite to that word is bid'ah. Sunnah means the orthodoxy, bid'ah means the heresy. If you actually means the Sunnah in the fiqh sense, then Sunnah means what Islam prompts you to do, but does not make it obligatory. And in that context, it's in contrast to fard. So there's a fard and there's a Sunnah. If you are talking in epistemology, Sunnah means the hadith, at least the prevailing paradigm. And that in the other category that lives with Sunnah in this context is Al-Quran. So there's Quran and there's Sunnah. There is Fard and there is Sunnah. There is Bid'ah and there is Sunnah, and so forth. So all of that is Sunnah. So what we got from the Prophet ﷺ, we got everything. And we categorized it. We categorized it into different compartments. So it's important to understand that the Prophet ﷺ was the messenger. He gave us the message. But inside that message, when he taught the Muslims the faith, he taught them everything simultaneously. It's an after assumption that he categorized it academically, like we categorized it academically. Chances are those boundaries are extremely blurred in real life when he was sitting down with his companions and teaching them the faith. In addition to that, he had other responsibilities besides being the messenger. He was the leader of the community. He needed to organize all their social issues, marriage, divorce, trade, the market. He had to deal with all the political stuff with other tribes, with alliances. He was also a military leader. He had to organize the campaigns that he needed to do, and sometimes he would assign somebody in his place to lead, and sometimes he would lead it himself. He had to do all of that. So the Prophet ﷺ was a messenger and he was a leader at the same time. He would, how you want to differentiate the word messenger or Rasul from Nabi, obviously there are some differences. You don't necessarily have to be too idealistic about, what pertains to prophethood, in terms of Rasul and what to Nabi. I guess it could be subject for debate, but the bottom line is, one had to do with the message, and the other had to do with implementing the message among people. And then at the same time, he had to do a lot of stuff that are just the practicality of being the leader of the community. And then on top of that, he was also a human being. He had personal life. He had wives, he had children. There's foods that he liked, foods that he hated, and all of that stuff. So but we got all of that we got from the Prophet ﷺ. If we don't make that distinction, things will be blurry. Let me give you a clear example about this. And this is not anything modified. This is the prevailing paradigm. Anything that has to do to the leadership of the society, not the message. The scholars in Islam say this is called siyasa shar'iyya. What does siyasa shar'iyya means? Politics that pertain to Sharia or politics that pertain to the Prophet. Okay, so what does that mean? It's a term. What does it mean? It means the category of siyasa shar'iyya versus the category of the Sunnah in terms of the religion. You know, whatever you want to define that Sunnah is in terms of the religion, but there is a Sunnah in relation to the religion, and there is siyasa shar'iyya in relation to things that are not the religion. And in siyasa shar'iyya, you are not required to follow the Prophet in the details, but you are required to follow the Prophet in the principle. That's how scholars organize this. While in the category of Sunnah, the scholars tell you to follow the Prophet in principle and in details. An example, you know, the way he organized, let's say, the army for a battle. Is that something, I mean, the only thing you get from that is what is the principle, not the details. I mean, the details obviously are subject to the extreme change across time. So some of the scholars who, you know, were a little bit, you know, innovative, recognized that category and they called it something else. So people will not confuse, because the how much if you don't understand that, some people actually say, you know, that you have to follow the details of siyasa shar'iyya to its details, and obviously that's not realistic. And then the other problem that may arise from this, if you subscribe to this division, if you agree with it, then a particular event, well, does it fall into this or into that? I'll give you an example. Siwak. Siwak. Are you, you know, is the Prophet giving you the principle, clean your teeth, or the actual instrument of siwak? You know, people that say it's the principle, then they see the toothbrush as perfectly fine, and this is, you know, as long as you're cleaning your teeth. People that don't say that know that it's the actual stick. And those who say no, it's the actual stick, of course they try to say that there are some like hidden secrets in this, and you know, that's the way the justification goes. Exactly. So we have to understand, the bottom line is, if you are going to understand Islam, let alone if you are going to try to modify the paradigm to a new paradigm, you have to understand what the heritage of the Prophet and how to categorize it. You have to understand the human aspect. You know, when the Prophet ﷺ says he likes al-zira' min al-shat or al-hulu min al-ta'am.
Just translate those.
Al-zira' min al-shat, it's a particular piece of meat. I think it's the lamb shank. Not sure exactly what it is. I think it's the lamb shank. Okay, he likes the lamb shank. Does that give lamb shank anything special?
No.
Okay. Do you get hasanat if you eat lamb shank? Yeah. Okay. He likes the hulu min al-ta'am. Does that mean like if you eat sweets you get hasanat? It is what it is. That's it. It's his human nature, and he's allowed to have human nature. You know, he's a human after all. And then the issue have to deal with organization of society. Now this is a big element, because this is where a huge element of dysfunction is. Because what works for now is different from what works from the days that of the Prophet ﷺ, or even the Sahaba. I mean, the same thing goes for the Sahaba, of course. Where does this, I mean, you would find actually people that tell you, oh, the ways to transfer authority, political authority, has to be either number one, which is the way Abu Bakr did it, or either number two, which is this is a mind that is, again, in deep freeze. So while if you understand it in terms of this is siyasa shar'iyya, which means you only get the principle, it's an example of the principle. It's not the actual religion. It's an example of the principle. Well, where's the principle here? The principle is وَأَمْرُهُمْ شُورَى بَيْنَهُم. And then they try to exercise this in different ways. But the principle is what you need to keep an eye on, not the actual example. I mean, if let's just say circumstances are exactly the same, then the actual example may work for you, but you're not obligated if circumstances are not the same, and they're never the same. So everything has to do with him as a leader. And then everything has to do with him as a messenger. And somewhere in between, you have to define what the word Nabi means. You just have to define it. I mean, you may get it right, or partially right, or partially wrong, but at least you have to make a definition of what the word Rasul mean, and what the word Nabi mean, and what the word Qa'id للمجتمع مين. Because and you have to allocate what the heritage of the Prophet to those categories, so you know how to deal with it. Those elements that are in relation to him as a messenger, obviously those are the things you need to pay attention to when you are trying to build a paradigm that understands Islam. Those are things that pertain to him as a leader. He's a role model in principle, that's it. And those that pertain to him as a human being, that pertains to him as a human being. That's about it. So that's, I think that making that clarification is important in understanding a new paradigm. That's all I have about the Prophet.
Okay.